I've tried to say to the head before, I was like, they are really funny about the kids having squash in their bottles. They're like, it must be water. And then they have their milk that they give out, because they're in with the the dairy industry there. But I said, oh, it's really interesting, isn't it? That the school's really pernickety about making sure they have water. I said, I assume you're doing that from a health point of view. And he was like, yeah, of course. And I was like, yeah, I agree. I said, but it's very strange that every day on the menu there's carcinogenic food for the children. I said, you may as well give them some cigarettes. And his face, he was just like, huh? But I thought, I'm just going to leave that there with you and have a good day.
Welcome back to the Plant Fueled Podcast, a place where we dive into the heart of plant-based living and explore many facets of the vegan lifestyle. I'm your host, Callum, a plant-based nutritionist who's on a mission to bring you stories, insights, and conversations that inspire and inform. Today we're venturing into the realm I never imagined we'd explore on this podcast, a world where veganism meets children's literature. Our guest is Tina Newman, the brilliant mind behind Vivi the Supervegan series, a collection of books that's capturing the hearts of young readers and setting the stage for a future where compassion and vegan values are nurtured from a young age. Tina's work is not just about telling stories, it's about creating a movement. With the upcoming TV series on the horizon, it's clear that Vivi is on a path to revolutionize how children perceive and interact with the world around them. Move over, Peppa Pig, there's a new icon in town, and her message is powerful. In our conversation, Tina shares her journey into the world of vegan children books, the inspiration behind her character Vivi, and what it's like to see the character embraced by so many. We dive into challenges and triumphs of promoting veganism through literature, especially in a rural farming community. How do children react? How do parents and educators respond? These are some of the questions we explore. We also discuss endorsements from notable vegans like Ivana Lynch, the concerning realities of carcinogenic school dinners, and much more. This discussion is an eye-opener on so many levels, revealing the potential of storytelling as a tool for change and the importance of planting seeds of empathy and awareness from a young age. Let's dive in. Before we dive in, a small request. While our listener base continues to grow, it seems that the number of star ratings and reviews hasn't quite caught up. If you find value in what we're doing here, please consider leaving a review or a rating on your preferred platform. It's a small gesture that means a lot to me. It also helps new listeners to find the podcast, spread the message further, and enables us to continue bringing you the content and the guests that inspires, educates, and empowers us all. Thank you so much for your support, love, and being part of this journey with us. Remember, every small change contributes to a larger impact. Peace and plants. And now, without further ado, let's jump into this riveting episode. So, it's been really weird because for the last few days I've been trying to work out how to start this episode of the podcast. Normally, obviously, I'm focusing on nutrition, health, and fitness, and the episode is normally very structured around, certain types of subjects such as cholesterol or gut microbes, something along those lines. And this podcast doesn't even really necessarily focus on nutrition. However, this episode is going to be something that I never thought I'd really be having a conversation about. I think the best way to start this is really giving you a thank you, really, because in the last day or so, I've been immersed in reading children's books, and it's really this kind of simple joys that you kind of leave behind when you start adulting. So if you forget to imagine and immerse yourselves in fun, and I don't think I've read a children's book in at least 20 years.
Oh, I'm glad I've brought you some joy.
Yeah, no, it was odd because I picked it up. I say picked it up, read it from the
online.
And you just kind of forget that the childlikeness of children's books and how happy something small and so simple and very easy to read can bring you. That's where we read very kind of, especially in the nutrition scene, I'm reading a lot of just kind of like studies and papers. It's nice just to kind of sit back, relax, and read something that's just well written and beautifully illustrated as well.
Oh, thank you so much. That's lovely to hear.
That's no worries. So I think the best way to start really is just kind of explaining who you are, because I don't know how many people, when going to the vegan scene, are aware that there are now vegan children's books.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? Because I'm so immersed in my little Vivi world, and I assume that everybody's kind of heard of them, and I know that that's just not the case. Like, it's still kind of quite new out there in the world, and I only released my first book back in 2019, which was Vivi the Supervegan, and I obviously did that because I had children myself, and they were 1 and 3, and I was looking for these kind of books, and they didn't exist. There's some great educational ones, but as you said, like, there's nothing better as a kid to be immersed in a story which is still fun and magical and mischievous, and those kind of elements don't really tie in with veganism because it's a really tough topic. But I couldn't find the kind of things that I wanted, so I wrote my first book, and then after that, I've obviously got 2 more, which I've written since. But it was just so important for me, for my kids, and then all of the other children who are vegan or who are plant-based, and who, you know, families who are vegetarian and looking to transition. I wanted children to see themselves represented in children's books and feel included. And because I couldn't find that, I just thought I would make it happen.
So you have 2 children yourself?
Yes, 2 little girls.
I'm guessing they're both vegan.
Yes, yeah. So it was a good age really for them, because they were only 1 and 3 when I decided that I was going to go vegan. I'd been vegetarian for 21 years anyway, but my hubby was like full on carnivore, like meat 3 meals a day kind of guy, like bodybuilding, like everything. So I thought, he's going to absolutely kill me when I say, hey, by the way, I'm going to go vegan. He's also celiac, so we've got like lots of other kind of dietary things to factor in our family. But I thought, I've just got to tell him. And I wasn't going to say like, you do it and the kids do it. But he watched the video that I'd watched that had kind of gone bing, my light bulb moment. And he was like, I'm going to do it with you. Let's do it as a family. So that was really helpful, because then we went on a journey together as a family, and, you know, we were trying all the different plant milks with the kids. And because they were so diddy, they didn't really know anything different. My eldest had become quite accustomed to cow's milk, and we had to kind of make it really fun and, you know, do like lots of little taste tests and stuff. But yeah, it was quite a simple transition for us really. And we're now 6 years later. And yeah, just a very, very happy vegan family.
Oh, that's beautiful. I think, like, as well, like, there's so much talk about veganism and children these days as well. I know I get asked on literally a weekly basis about what to feed children that are vegan, or how much food they're meant to be consuming, or how much protein a child's meant to be consuming. And myself, I have no idea when it comes to children.
It's a minefield. It's really,
really get taught.
I know. But what's so funny is, you know, before we were vegan, we weren't even thinking about, you know, were they getting all the right vitamins and minerals and nutrients with what they were eating? And everyone just gives their children like ham sandwiches and, you know, a packet of crisps and this and that. And no one judges you. No one says anything. And then the minute you go vegan, you're looking into everything and making sure they're getting everything from the right places. You actually become so much healthier and so much more educated and well informed that, you know, my kids are eating stuff I never would have eaten as a kid. And they're having spinach and kale and tofu and all of the legumes and curries, and they literally have such a varied diet. And they come home and they say that the kids look in their lunchbox and they're like, wow, what have you got today? Like, because it's all so colourful, and it's just such a mindset shift, and you become aware of all of the things that we were probably missing before, not probably, definitely missing before, you know, eating pescatarian or omnivore diets, you know, all the different things.
Yeah, it's weird how, like, you do, like, when you go vegan, people do judge you. They're like, what are you eating, all this, and especially when it comes to vegan nutrition for kids. However, these people will happily, you know, take their child into a McDonald's, get like a 6 chicken nugget meal and chips, and be like, there's no judgment there. Because that's just seen as an everyday food. But when you're feeding them actual nutrients that we know we're meant to be having, to be having, you know, 5 fruit and vegetables a day. But when you're actually feeding that to children, be like, what are you doing?
Yeah. It's bonkers.
What do you think you're doing with that child?
I know. Like, how awful. Just vegetables and fruit. You're like, oh, okay. But it's it's just so weird.
you've now grown your children up to have a much more diverse palate as well. But I think later on down the line, when you haven't had those diverse palates as a child, you then turn your nose up at certain things.
Yeah.
I know a lot of adults that are more fussy eaters than children. So
Yeah.
children are willing to try everything. Whereas if I was trying to try or give a lentil dal to some adults, they would turn their nose up.
Oh, absolutely. I know so many people like that. And even my dad, bless him, he's a classic London man. He grew up on probably like Spam and like rabbit stews and all things that just make me go, oh my gosh. But he's 78 now, and we didn't expect him to make any changes himself or force anything on him. But just from having, his two very sweet little granddaughters keep giving him little bits of information, and his very passionate daughter who's always banging on about everything, he's made some massive changes himself, and he's now vegetarian. But what's so funny is he's diabetic type 2, so through a very, very unhealthy lifestyle before. But his cholesterol it's never been so good. The nurses keep looking at him going, what are you doing that's different? And he's like, well, annoyingly, he hates to admit it, but he's like, I've cut out meat. He does have eggs and fish very occasionally, but really he is on a very, very predominantly plant-based diet because my mum cooks for him at home, and he's seeing all of the changes himself. But what I've realized is the conditioning is so deep with, that the further you go back generationally, it's so much deeper. So his conditioning is a lot deeper than mine was to undo. So a lot of the foods his mum fed him, he's like, well, how can they be bad for me? My mum fed me them. And there's like a real psychological link, isn't there, with what you were fed as a child because your parents loved you. And it's such an interesting topic when you chat to people. But no, you're right. I think children are a lot more willing to try stuff, and once their palate has adjusted, it's so much easier then to grow into an adult who tries everything food wise.
Yeah, it is harder with adults, as you just mentioned. Like it is that conditioning, because like most people back in the day, they did grow up with the kind of meat and 2 veg on their plates, and that's been classed as healthy. And then when you get all this new information, when you get information that things are like carcinogenic and can cause cancer, things like that, they don't want to believe it because it's what they've grown up knowing.
Of course.
And obviously what they've grown up knowing and then the science changing doesn't always correlate to them. So it's very much that the science then just goes over their heads. They don't want to listen to it. Then it's a confirmation bias.
Of course.
So they're just kind of having a biased opinion on what they want to hear.
Yeah.
It is sad to see it. But luckily things are changing, and
they are.
I've got family that are exactly the same, where they're like, oh, it can't be bad for me, it can't cause this, can't cause that. But it is what it is. It's in the science. We can't change that.
I think what's so tricky as well is obviously the corruption within the big organizations and things. So, my dad will subscribe to like the Diabetes UK and support them financially because that is, close to his heart. However, when they put on their fundraising days, what are they dishing up? Like they're literally feeding all of the food which has made everybody ill in the first place. And at the cancer research events, they're just doing barbecues and big burgers and all of this, and you're just sitting there like, it just doesn't make any sense at all.
This is exactly how I feel about hospitals. Like hospitals, right. you go in there, you go into the cafeterias, or normally there's a McDonald's or a Costa downstairs or something like that. And these things are the reason some of these people are in there.
Yeah, I know.
And they're allowed to just kind of go get that food again and just carry on living how they're living. And it's mind-blowing.
You're like in a zombie land, aren't you? You're just like, you want to scream, but
yeah, this is luckily because I've seen there's a few hospitals lately that have switched to a completely plant-based restaurant and menu. I think things are slowly changing, but it's always going to be slow. But it's always going to be slow. But you've already got these giant industries, kind of
course.
Like especially when McDonald's pays for a place inside a hospital, like you're fighting against like a multi-billion dollar like multi-corporation. Like you can't really fight against that.
And the school system is terrible. I mean, every single school dinner is just ultra processed and unhealthy. And, even if you're lucky enough to get a school that's going to support you and give, vegan dinners, they're just nuggets and chips or, something else with chips, but in a different form. So it'll be wedges one day. And it's really difficult because the children are obviously seeing all of their friends having all of that. And, you know, I used to let them when they were free, because up until a certain age, you get free school meals in the UK. But then when they're at a certain point, you have to pay. So I do pack lunches, and at least I'm in, you know, I've got some control over what they're eating. But they're seeing their friends having this every day. So I don't want them to feel like the odd ones out. But also, I don't want those habits to become like the norm for them. And they're so addictive, aren't they? And it's very hard as a parent trying to get that balance right.
That's the thing. I was actually going to ask you, how does that work with school dinners, and obviously going to like children's parties as well, because we're still we're a minority compared to school dinners. Is there do they have plant-based options, or when you go to like a children's birthday party, when you get the cakes and that, they've got eggs and bits and pieces? How do we kind of work a way around that?
I think we've been quite lucky in the way that our school have provided a 3-week rotating vegan menu now for the girls, and there are a couple of other children now who are vegan, mainly because of my children. But you know, there are about 4 of them now. So but as I said, it's not a very healthy menu, so we'll kind of like dip in and out of that, but at least they're there, the options. And parties and things like that, and social events, most of the time parents are really, really good at like letting me know. I'll always message them and say like, hey, is there anything you need me to do or bring, and try and be really, really nice and helpful. And they'll be like, oh no, everyone else is going to have this, and we just wanted to make sure that you know, these are okay, and they'll show me, and at least I can guide them with it. But I've always tried to find out exactly what they're having and then take the vegan alternatives. So it will be all of that ultra processed stuff, because most of the time it is just pizza and chips or nuggets and chips. And, you know, I don't want the kids to, I don't want to turn up with a plate of kale and quinoa and, you know, a Buddha bowl, because as much as they love that at home, that's not cool for a party. I get that. So I will make up everything that the others are having if they haven't provided it, and I'll make it look 10 times better. So they will have everything else as well on it. And then the kids, they get a plate of like pizza and chips with nothing else, and then mine have that, but they've got all of this other yummy stuff, and then they feel really good about it.
I feel like as well, when you've made it look so much better as well, other kids are going to see that and be like, what is that?
I know.
It's like kids, like when you, I don't know, from what I remember as a child going to these parties, it used to be like a hot dog or something like that with maybe like some ketchup or mustard. So I don't know how much you can make a hot dog look amazing. But if I saw something that was a bit more colourful or something like that, I probably would have gone for that more than I would have just like a bland beige kind of just bun and sausage.
Exactly. And most of the time, because the kids all have a birthday cake and then they all get a slice, most of the parents are really, really sweet, and then they go to, you know, a shop and get a vegan cupcake or whatever, but there's usually like 6 of them in a pack. So they'll just give the whole thing to mine. And then all the other kids are like, huh? Like they get 1 slice of birthday cake, and there's mine like with a big box, and they're like all happy about it.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, because they do come in like awkward pack sizing.
Yeah, they do.
When there's like not many other vegan kids around. You can at least they're being treated. Yeah,
exactly. So it's a win, but it is hard. I think navigating through a non-vegan world as an adult is hard enough, but you know, as a parent and with kids and as a child, there are so many different obstacles along the way. And that's why with my books, I wanted to give kids, you know, a resource so they could feel that they are doing this amazing thing, that they are like literal superheroes. They're protecting the planet by doing what they're doing. They are saving animals every day just by not eating them. You know, all of the different things that they're doing. I want kids to know that, because I don't want them to feel like they're doing something weird and abnormal compared to their friends. They need to be told how amazing they are. And the fact that there isn't anything out there doing this, I was not cool about that. I was like, nope, this has got to change. So I am on a major mission here, a mum on a mission.
Yeah, but there's 3 books altogether, isn't there?
There are 3 books, yep.
Vivi the Supervegan, then there's
Vivi and the Planet Protector.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the last one was the Sea Saviors.
Vivi. Yes, well done. You've done your homework. Vivi and the Sea Saviors.
I read them all.
Oh, that's so cute. And we're
I read everything, and to be fair, I loved it.
Brilliant.
It took me back to, I don't know what you read as a child, but mine were, I can't remember the name of the book, but it was like Biff and Chip.
Yeah.
And
Oh, yeah. Gosh, you're
my
young then, aren't you?
well,
How
I'm
old are
31.
you? Oh,
31.
okay. Yeah, well, I'm 37, but I suppose Biff and Chip was like our kind of generation. Like, did you like Roald Dahl and stuff when you were
Yeah,
young?
we had Roald Dahl, we
Yeah.
had many of the others like that. So it was very Roald Dahl, and then like, obviously it went up in key stages, like Key Stage
Yeah.
1 and Key Stage 2. So I remember like Biff and Chip, and like I think it's like the Magic Roundabout, things like that.
Yeah.
Not Magic Roundabout, that's
the
way
TV
older than
program.
me. So I read it, but I wasn't too sure what to expect. So I didn't know how kind of like subtle it was going to go with
Yeah.
it. Because I've seen like when we talk about like veganism and children, some people are very kind of out there and very extreme. Some people are too subtle where it doesn't really kind of show anything.
Yeah.
But you've got that right in the middle fix.
Oh, good. I'm glad you said that.
You've got the activism, but it's not pushing it in a way that is kind of going to be off-putting to the parents. But at the same way, it's knowledgeable.
Yeah. Thank you. That was the thing that I was really trying to get right with the balance, because as I said, the books that I bought my girls were they were telling the truth very, very honestly, but the illustrations were very dark and it was very scary for a little child, which it is. You know, if you're just going to tell them exactly what happens, it is just crushing. Like, you suddenly think, what an evil world we live in. But I wanted to try and get that right. So I wanted to get it in the middle. And as you say, parents are reading them to their kids, and a lot of people that buy them aren't vegan. And I want them to go on that journey as well, where it is going to challenge them. Like that challenge, it challenged me even as a vegetarian. I felt defensive and upset, and, you know, you're questioning everything. But that needs to happen for people to know the truth. And then what they do with the information, it's down to them, isn't it? I'm just presenting it in the most child-friendly way that I could, and hoping that it will plant seeds along the way.
Yeah, you're telling the truth in the best way possible. Like, I think for adults later on down the line, you know, obviously you can have whatever kind of activism you want, whether that being kind of like leading with experience, leading with, or you can kind of go out, do the TVs, or you can go out and speak and whatever. But when it comes to children, there's a very fine line of what you can and you can't do.
Yes.
And what you've done there is it's perfectly presented as well. Obviously, it's truthful. It's truthful with what we're doing. But at the same time, it's not just forcing exactly what it is. There's no gory pictures, anything like that. And it's just, especially the illustrations as well. I think one of my favorites was in Vivi and the Planet Protector, when Pax.
Yes.
Yeah, and turning the plastic bottle into wildflowers, which is also a good way to obviously regenerate the land as well. So you're kind of adding those bits of information in there as well that people can do. They're simple things people can just kind of get up and kind of do themselves.
Exactly. And I wanted those subtle little things that hopefully that people would pick up on, and you have. So that's good. I'm sure a lot of it will go over kids' heads, but hopefully parents reading it will be like, that's interesting. And my third book, because I feel like the whole plastic situation is like, it's the big elephant in the room for me, because I've got so many friends who are like, I've ditched straws and I won't use plastic bags. And, you know, when you're like, that's wonderful, that's great. But actually it's, you know, 50% is from the fishing industry and all of these things that people are unaware of, and the bycatch. And, you know, I was like, right, my third book needs to be about that. And it's probably the most tame in terms of like the message, like, but I feel like educating children on ghost nets and very subtly trying to explain it. And I also wanted to show that the animals obviously end up saving the day for the humans. Like, to anyone who obviously hasn't read this, they won't have a clue what I'm talking about. But obviously the fishermen are doing something which is damaging to their environment. But then there's this obviously a big, dramatic, stormy situation, and they're about to go into the rocks, and the whales obviously come and save the day. And I wanted to show that when we actually work together, we can live in peace and harmony. And it's not like, you know, animals have this conditional love for us, whatever we're doing to them. And I kind of wanted to show that as well. So that was something really important to me with my third book.
Yeah, it was. I think I thought I didn't know where you were going to lead from with the first book. So I was like, that's perfectly done. And then it focuses on like a different kind of part each time. So like the end one is just Hey the Sea. And the second one as well, obviously having other little vegans in there as well. It's not just her on her own. What was the time difference between these? Because Lily has grown up very quickly if it's under a year.
No. So yeah, because my little girl was born under the Christmas tree, which was why I did that whole little thing with the first book, my second anyway. And then I wanted to maybe have like a kind of 2-3 year age gap. I don't know if Vivi looks as though she's grown that much, but little girls don't change that much. So that's how we've got away with that. However, obviously Pax came in and I was like, I cannot have my youngest daughter ever saying to me, hey, like, why did I stay as a little baby? Like, why am I not represented? So, we've got all 3 of them now causing mischief and trying to save the day. So, and obviously we're in the process of getting this turned into a TV series. So, the age they will be doing all of their adventures will be like the 3rd book kind of thing. So Vivi and Pax around kind of like 8 and Lily around like 5, 6. So that's the plan anyway.
That's amazing. That is. So the whole TV series, is that like a greenlit thing, or is this something we're still working towards?
We are in the so I met my producer about 3 years ago, and then we had to kind of package the whole concept up and work together to build a team and get our pitch deck ready and approach all of our kind of like vegan celeb voiceovers and build a whole team. So it's taken a long time, and then about 9 months ago we kind of started reaching out to investors and channels and networks and stuff. So we are very much in the process, and we're getting closer. We're really close to the kind of financial point where we've got people interested. We're still looking for a lead investor, and then we can basically hit the green light and get it into production.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I'm very excited because when I first spoke to her, my dream was to turn this into a TV series because that once again, there's nothing on TV. Like, I remember the raccoons. I don't know if you remember the raccoons when we were young.
The raccoon.
Yeah. What was his name? We got Cyril Sneer, and that was kind of like ahead of its time in the way that it was quite focused on saving the forest, and Cyril Sneer had his big factory and he was trying to ruin it all. And I kind of dream of this being like that for kids today. Like, that was very big when I was little in the 80s. But since then, there really hasn't been anything. And once again, we won't be pushing the vegan word. It will be Vivi and the Planet Protectors, Agents of Change. It's very much focused on let's hook the children in and make them realize that this is normal. It's normal to be kind to animals, and it is really cool to try and protect the planet. And then we'll have different messages in. I mean, as you say, there are so many different aspects to veganism. I could write a different book every year based on how many things there are involved in just trying to have a peaceful, loving, vegan world. So we've got so many different adventures and storylines lined up, but we also want to give children an app where they can, come and get loads of information and play games and just learn. It'll be a whole Vivi and the Planet Protectors world. And then what comes from that, we'll have like a YouTube series and just a whole kind of one-stop place for everything to do with, vegan friendly and ethical friendly content for kids and families.
So kind of creating a giant platform for them as well. So kind of
basically
everything there for them to kind of learn and just kind of get the information that they need to discuss with other people. Yeah.
And to be able to connect with other vegan families. And I mean, Peppa Pig's done it. Paw Patrol's done it. They've all done it. There's like no reason that this won't happen. It's just trying to connect with the right people and the right kind of ethical investors as well. Like we've been approached by lots of people, but they kind of want to just change the whole thing. And it's got to stay true to what I did it for. Like, I'm not just in it for, churning something out. It's very important to me that's why the team, we've tried really hard to get, plant-based and vegan and vegetarian, everyone just to kind of be on the same page here. So we all share the same ethics.
That's amazing. Like,
It's hard work.
I'm not too sure what's on children's TV these days. Apart from obviously, your usual Peppa Pig and Bluey and things like that.
Bluey is amazing. That's something that the Aussies have done so well.
I've still never seen it, but I keep seeing the posters all over the place over here.
You need to watch an episode. I tell you what, they've written that mainly for the adults. It's so funny. It is brilliant.
I will give it a little watch. But I think when it comes down to TV shows, from what I can remember, what was on when I was younger, there was nothing that was kind of informative. It was just kind of fun. And now I now know that nowadays that they do touch on certain subjects, but in a very kid friendly way. But obviously, not too sure where they really touch on with like obviously animal agriculture, veganism, things like this. Because I've seen cartoons where there's a lot of kind of meat and things going on, drinking milk, everything inside, which it makes everything seem quite normal on a day-to-day basis. Obviously, these things, we're causing a lot of harm, and obviously, children, I think, are also very open-minded.
They are
compared to adults, because I don't think I know, especially for me, that if I asked what a chicken nugget was or what a burger was made from, I don't think I would have actually been told the truth about what it was actually made from. There's kind of that
funny, isn't it?
Disconnect.
Yeah. And kids want to know the truth. They do. They want to know the truth about everything. So I think when it comes to kids programs, even in Peppa Pig, it's just bonkers. You've got pigs, a family of pigs, cooking up bacon on a barbecue, and you're like, okay, that's a bit random. But you're right. It's everything they do. It's kind of like subtle little messages to say this is normal. Everybody does it. It's completely necessary, and we want to kind of fight that with the peaceful. We want to balance that out and show, even if it's just subtle messages, like when Vivi and her family are sitting around and having dinner, it's going to be all plant-based food on the screen, and everything they do, they're not going to be going to zoos and farms. They're going to be doing these rescue missions and going to sanctuaries, and there's so many ways we can do this in a child-friendly way without being preachy, and that kids will just love, because they'll be causing mischief and there'll be magic and, all sorts of funny, silly humor. So it's hard work. What we're trying to do, it hasn't been done. And I understand why it hasn't been done, because you're up against the big boys here and they don't like it, but it needs to be done. And I'm not going to give up until it happens. So, yeah.
Have you had any kind of like backlash before? Because I know that like there's always arising issues where people are like, oh, you're forcing your beliefs on a child. And we also forget that they're generally forcing their beliefs on the children of like consumption of animals, and which of course kids don't realize what they're doing. And obviously if you ask them if they wanted to harm an animal, they would rather play with it. Like we all know full well that's going to happen. If you put, let's say, a cat or like some food in a room, they're going to go for the food and play with the cat. The same as if you were to like be in the room with a cow, they want to play with the cow or the pig. They're not going to be wanting to eat those. So people are forcing those beliefs on people of eating and consuming animals, not really giving them a choice.
Yeah.
Have you had those kind of opinions forced at you?
I've had I remember an interview once when obviously I live in a very rural farming village in Suffolk, in the UK, so it's quite what we're doing, we are very much in the minority as vegans anyway. And then what I'm doing with my business, a lot of people take that very personally and they get quite defensive. They look at it like I'm threatening them and what they're doing. And I've got friends who are farmers, and it is the big elephant in the room. But I had an interview once with a radio station in Suffolk where they tried to say, what you're doing is you're brainwashing children, and it was that kind of aggressive tone with everything. But I just said, very, very chilled out answer. I just said to her, but what I'm trying to do is just give the alternative. I'm trying to show children, A, the truth, and B, that it doesn't need to be done. Like, you just be kind to animals. And eat healthily and everything like that. And she didn't really know what to say because she was obviously coming with her own opinion and agenda, and I get that. I haven't really had too much backlash from parents. Obviously, most people who buy my books are probably vegan or open-minded to it all anyway. But I've had comments, and you're always going to get that. I know you will with what you're doing, and especially with having children. But I think most people, they see me and my kids looking really, really healthy, and it makes them actually like ask more positive questions. I think people are more curious about it all. So I've been quite lucky really in terms of backlash and negativity, but I just try and be really, I mean, I'm a very bubbly, friendly, chatty person anyways. And I think it's hard for people to be mean to people like that.
Yeah, like I do as you said, like no matter what part you're in of veganism, whether that be like, you know, activism, nutrition, you writing books, anything like that, you're going to get backlash all the time. I get a huge amount of trolls, and it's great for me when they
It's
start
laughable though, isn't
like,
it?
this is working for me. Like,
Yeah.
you keep going, guys. I'm going to keep appearing. You're going to keep commenting, and I'm going to keep getting boosted. It's fine.
Brilliant. Yeah.
I was like, you're actually helping me out. You're not helping the cause of your own cause.
Of course. It's good, isn't it? It's funny.
But it's, yeah, I think when you can show that you are like, you're against the stereotypes that most people think. Obviously, most people think we're going to be scrawny, weak people. When you can show them that that's not the case, people will start seeing it more positive. You're leading by example.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when it's done in love and you're just nice and people ask questions and you give them the answers, they may not like the answers, but they've asked it, so they've started the conversation. You can't really get angry then, can you?
Yeah, that's the thing.
Although people still do.
They can't get angry at the answer that they know probably is coming. They probably know the answer they're going to get.
Yeah. And then they'll be like, oh, how do you know a vegan, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, you asked me a question. Like,
yeah, that's the one thing, because everybody's like, oh, like, how do you know if someone's going to be a vegan? Because I tell you about it. I was like, I know lack of vegans that have ever told me they're vegan. Yeah. But I know a lot of people that tell me they'd rather eat a steak. Yeah,
I know. Oh, but bacon, though, I know.
I'm going like, surely that's the other way around.
Yeah.
You know.
I know.
You do.
Exactly.
So I'm guessing that obviously your children growing up in a vegan household, that they're very aware of. So how old are they now?
My youngest has just turned 8 and my eldest is 9.
Okay, so I'm guessing they're very aware of obviously what's going on and how to have these conversations as well with other children.
Yes, yeah, they're brilliant. They're such compassionate kids, and I put that down to obviously their personality. And I was a very sensitive child as well, and that's why I went vegetarian when I found out at 11. And if I'd have known the truth about the eggs and the dairy, I would have been vegan, but I didn't know. So they're very, very compassionate, and they're very loving towards their friends who are obviously all sitting next to them, and they're finding it hard. They do come home and say they find it hard because they're ripping their like chicken in bits, and the girls know what's happened and it upsets them, but they will just try and drop a few truth bombs here and there, and kids can take it anyway. Like they've had children try and tease them about stuff, and they'll just turn around and they will give it back, because although they're sensitive kids, I've told them, you know, just say something back. So my youngest actually turned around and was like, well, at least I'm not eating a chicken's butt. And then her friend was just like, so they've got, it's lucky as kids because you can get away with a lot more, but they do find it hard, because obviously where we live, the big trucks come by full of pigs and chickens, and you know, we could be just walking to school one day and then they drive past, and all the other kids are like, oh, what's that smell? But my two just look up at me and they know where they're going, they know what's going to happen. And that's not through me showing them footage and being like, here, watch this, and this is slaughterhouse footage. They haven't seen anything like that, but they know that animals are bred to be killed for food. And that's all a kid needs to know that they're not okay with that. And they're very passionate little vegans. And I can't ever see them changing really. When people love to go, oh, what are you going to do if they don't do that when they're teenagers, and ask all those questions. And I'm like, what they do when they're older is up to them. Like, I can only teach them and educate them and give them the best start in life and feed them all of the really, really healthy food. And with all of the alternatives out there anyway, they're not missing out on anything. They have the burgers and chips, they can have the pizzas and have whatever anyone else is having. But I see their compassion. I can't ever see that changing.
That's great as well, because obviously, like, especially if they carry on living this lifestyle throughout their life, you've done a good job. You've done exactly what you set out to do. And hopefully it does stay that way. And I think obviously growing up in a very compassionate household as well, they're less likely to be like, I'm going to go have a Big Mac later on at 18. Yeah. Like, there's no reason to. And especially like, when you have all these alternatives, people always say to us, like, you're missing out on this, right? Like, I've eaten bacon before. Like, yeah. I wasn't born this way. Like,
yeah, I know.
Like, I know what I'm missing, and it weren't great.
Yeah.
So people like to use that, and I'm just like, but we have all these alternatives. Like, some of the alternatives aren't up to scratch yet, but there's still way to go in some places, and that's fine.
Exactly.
But what I've got, like, I'm fine with.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Myself, I like although I do love the alternatives. The majority of my diet really revolves around things like tofu and beans and
whole foods. Yeah,
I love that as my everyday, because it makes me feel like I'm kind of thriving to the best of my ability.
Yeah.
Whereas when I was eating meat, I don't think I ever felt that great.
It's funny, isn't it? I mean, we eat whole food at home. Like, I cook from scratch, and the kids, they love having their friends around. I made a like a sugar-free like a healthy brownie yesterday, just with oats and maple syrup and cocoa powder and all of those kind of things, almond butter. And they were so excited to give it to their friend. And sorry, just turn my laptop on. Yeah, they were so excited to give it to their friend and say, look, this hasn't got sugar in and this and that. And they love being experimental and seeing the kind of foods that I can come up with, because they're all so delicious. And then if they have their sausage rolls or something somewhere else, like, they're not missing out on anything. It's just it's a myth, isn't it?
That's the thing. Like, there's not much people are missing out on.
No.
And especially even when it comes to like nutrients as well. Like, I feel like they're probably more nutriented up than most of the other kids out there.
Yeah, I know.
Gammon, eggs and chips for dinner.
Yeah.
Which doesn't hold a huge amount of nutrition.
No.
So at least they're getting these as well. And
it's all carcinogenic. Like, it literally, their school menu, the meat on it is red meat and processed meat. It's just bonkers. I've tried to say to the head before, I was like, they are really funny about the kids having squash in their bottles. They're like, it must be water. And then they have their milk that they give out, because they're in with the the dairy industry there. But I said, it's really interesting, isn't it? That the school's really pernickety about making sure they have water. I said, I assume you're doing that from a health point of view. And he was like, yeah, of course. And I was like, yeah, I agree. I said, but it's very strange that every day on the menu, there's carcinogenic food for the children. I said, you may as well give them some cigarettes. And his face, he was just like, huh? But I thought, I'm just going to leave that there with you and have a good day.
Yeah, it's still wild to me that these things are allowed in schools, especially like your burgers and your nuggets and processed. Because it's not just us like vegans saying this and it being like some propaganda.
No,
this is like some of the biggest dietary associations in the world that have these policies and these literal charts and these experiments, and they've done all this research. They've had peer-reviewed scientific studies, and it says like, right there in the evidence and the science that this can cause or will cause cancers.
Yeah.
The same as cigarettes.
Yeah.
But people don't take it as seriously because it's food. It's what we're nourishing our bodies with. Whereas if, obviously when it's cigarettes, people are like, oh yeah, no, I can see that. But it's wild, and like I will keep telling people to the day I die, and I know people still aren't going to listen, and you can kind of show them the literature as much as possible.
But it's just, unless you're open-minded and willing to learn, it's just going to fall on deaf ears. I've realised that now. I think it's very sad that schools are serving up food. Well, it's not food. It's, it's going to make children sick and give them really unhealthy habits. But that's not my fight right now. I can't take that on.
And at least the children that you do have won't have those habits in the end of the day. Like, you're going to see this later on down the line where those children grow up, and there's going to be a lot of different habits, unhealthy habits from like different parents that get passed down. But it is those that get passed down. That's where the unhealthiness comes as well. But when you've got those healthy habits already ingrained in a child, a bit of junk food once in a while is not going to be the issue, because you're eating a very 80% whole foods, plant-based diet. And have a sausage roll, have a burger, have whatever you need, and it's not going to be an issue. And that's kind of what I wish I grew up on, was I had very unhealthy habits for a long time. And still can fall back into them if I have like a real bad day. Sometimes I'll be like, oh, you know what I fancy something a bit junky. I'll have that and everything, and a week's gone, I'm like, what has happened?
It's the link, isn't it, of the things that you find comforting or the things that you had as a kid. And me and my hubby were laughing, thinking about what we grew up on, and it's not our parents' fault. They were just doing what they thought as well, like back in the 80s. But every day I just had like a sandwich and a chocolate bar, a packet of crisps, and probably a bit of fruit that I probably left. And my husband grew up on like Iceland food, so it would have been frozen beige food, and he's got a lot of problems now, and he thinks like problems with his skin, and he has celiac disease, and he's like, I wonder if any of this is related to the stuff that he was given as a child. And it's too late now, isn't it? But we can only do what we can do for our little ones now, knowing and having the information now.
Exactly. It's using that information wisely from now on, and then giving it down to your children. Then your children, if they end up having children, then that will kind of carry on and carry on and carry on. And I do hope that, obviously, because it is now a rising thing, it is a growing thing, that this will carry on through generations with a lot of other children. You're going to see a lot more healthy generations. Because, for instance, at the moment, what's the generation that's like the newest one, I guess? Gen X?
I get confused. I think it's Gen X, Yeah, Gen X. It's not millennials now, is it?
So I'm a millennial, I think. And then there's
is it Gen Z?
I think Gen Z is the one below, and then there's Gen X.
Oh, okay.
I'm not too sure on all the actual terms, but I read a study the other day that they're probably the healthiest generation we've had in a few hundred years. But that's mainly because they're not drinking anymore, because they're seeing people like us and older people drinking. They've got the information at the tip of their fingers. Literally, any information they need, they can get in seconds. And they're
so true.
More like health conscious. They're doing a lot of like mind, body, spiritual stuff. They're not drinking. They're not using recreational drugs anymore or as much. And you're just seeing a giant paradigm shift.
Majorly.
In this very young generation that I think at one point, when hopefully I'm old, that they're going to kind of be pushing forward with like, health and wellness, and like especially the environment as well, because that's what I think like, a lot of young people are still very involved in now, is the environment, more than obviously the older generation that are like, we're going to park our 10 Land Rovers and just kind of plug up everything.
And I think that I actually read quite recently that they are the ones who are driving the vegan movement forward, because it is their future. They're going to be here. We've kind of done all of the damage, like us older generations and generations older than us, and they know that they've got to do everything to try and change that. And it shouldn't really be that way, but unfortunately it is, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just I'm hoping that it does change, and
I know.
But I feel like what we've done, it is still at this point reversible, and these people below us that care a lot more than the generations before can reverse that. And then, in a few years, there was one guy that I saw speak at a vegan camp out Australia. I can't remember who it was. He was just talking on stage, and it was on about, obviously, like how everything's shifting at the moment, and obviously if there was going to be a fully or predominantly vegan world in the future, it's also not too far off.
Yeah.
Because if we look at Germany, for instance, half their population of children are eating a vegetarian to vegan or very plant predominant diet than they were
That's amazing.
10 years ago.
Yeah,
so things are slowly shifting.
And the power is with the kids, which is why I'm doing what I'm doing. Like, it's so obvious to me that, children grow into adults with the same kind of values. So it's like, if we can just try and get to children and teach them and inform them and, educate them in the right way when they're young, they will grow to stay that way, because I was like that as a kid. I'm living proof. I mean, if we could just recreate loads of little kids who care, then they grow into adults who care, and we can make this world better.
I think especially with the help of like your books as well, like just giving that information, especially if it does get made into a TV series as well. Like when that happens, this is going to be available to a lot more people to make these choices and be a lot more informed about what's going on.
Yeah, exactly.
So at the moment, you're having all these shows, but they're not like, although they're developing minds and things, they're not developing like more conscious like habits of how to be more compassionate. Yeah,
and I think it's so important for kids to see that there is hope as well. And that's one thing when I started writing these, I didn't ever want them to feel burdened or feel like, oh, well, what's the point? It's all too late, and we can't do anything anyway. So many people will try and tell children and tell other adults, like, well, what can you do? Like, you're just one person, like you can't do anything. I didn't want children to feel powerless. I wanted them to feel empowered, because little things can have a big impact, and especially when you work together with your buddies. And that's what I wanted to show them. Like, there are simple things and simple changes that every child can do with their family, and that will have a huge impact.
I completely agree with that, because although it is just one person has an effect on another person.
Yeah, absolutely.
It becomes a domino effect. So when people do say, you're one person, you're not going to change anything, if everybody had that mindset, then nothing would get done. But however, so many different people, I think at the moment, there's a 7% vegan world, but that, 5-6 years ago, probably
didn't
1%.
Exist.
So it's knocking on. It's getting bigger and bigger. And
exactly,
if everybody felt that way, nothing would have happened. But these tiny things are just slowly just
snowballing,
bigger, becoming a snowball effect.
Yeah,
and which is beautiful to see, because I didn't think I'd see that.
No.
Especially like getting bigger in my life. I didn't think I'd ever see a children's vegan book. Because I see, like, there's a vegan market I go to every month in Sydney, and they have a few books there, and obviously you get your normal cookery books, you got your environmentalism books, and you've got some picture books, but I wouldn't say they're necessarily aimed at children.
Okay.
But they're kind of a mixture. I think they were probably meant for children, but I looked at them and I was like, is this something that I'd want a child to read?
Was it too much?
It was a bit too much. There was a lot of kind of pictures that I was like, I don't want to see as an adult.
I know.
And I'm kind of like, I don't know if this is something that I would want to scar a child with. Like, I would want them to know what's going on, but in the nicest possible way, giving them the advice they need in the most non-distressing way. Yeah, that's it. That's exactly how I felt when I got mine, and hence why I'm here. So with you growing up in a farming community, how is that? Like, do you, like, at first, was it kind of a bit like ruffling feathers?
Well, obviously we moved from London 6 years ago to Suffolk. So I think for us, we obviously had everything hidden very much in London, and like my husband hadn't thought of anything. Like, I was vegetarian, but I was happy cooking his meat. It was just I had a very different mindset when I was vegetarian. But I thought I was doing the right thing and not complicit in anything to do with animal cruelty, because I was an animal lover. However, moving to Suffolk and seeing the reality and seeing the trucks, as I said, and fields full of cows one day and then they're gone, and then fields full of sheep and so on. And then my husband saw a truck being loaded with pigs and heard the screaming and the squeals and everything. And it's so in your face here that you have to question, everything, and it's not all just packaged up and you're just in that kind of cognitive dissonance. So I think for him, it was a massive wake up call. For the kids, they probably can't remember obviously living in London and it being any different. It's just hard for them living in a rural farming community as vegan children who deeply care about everything. And my youngest did say to me the other day, "Oh, mummy, why is life so cruel, and why are people horrible to animals, and why can't they just stop?" And it is hard, but I try and encourage them to stay positive and be that influence around their friends. I said, if we give up and we become so beaten and down and sad about it all, that isn't going to help. That isn't going to help the animals. It's not going to help our beautiful planet we live on. So we have to stay strong and keep inspiring others by being the change. But I do think we are definitely ruffling feathers. And I make that little joke in my first book with the characters. So it's I
did make that connection with the character.
Yeah, that's good. Yes, to anyone once again who hasn't read the book, the character next door to Vivi's family is called Mrs. Rufflefeather. So I think it's just we have to stay true to ourselves and do what we're doing and be who we are, but do it in the nicest possible way. And when I've been challenged by my friends who are farmers, I've actually had one of them say to me, "Look, I am doing what you are fighting against, and I know you don't agree with what we do. However, we are third generation farmers. Their dad did it, their granddad did it, and he actually said to me, I've never stopped and questioned it. And you being here has actually made me do that for the first time. And I respect you for what you're doing." So I thought that was really interesting, because I am challenging what they're doing for their job and their whole livelihood. But I've said to so many people, I'm not anti-farmers. I'm not trying to demonize farmers or anything in my books. I'm just anti what they're farming. And there are so many organizations who are like, we want to support you and help you carry on. We're not trying to take your livelihood. We want to encourage you and support you and change what you're farming and help you with that. And I think it's the way you go around things, isn't it?
And that's really positive that's come from a farmer as well.
I know.
Because obviously I feel like a lot of the farmers that we do hear and speak about, they are like generations and generations and generations, and it's just what they've grown up knowing. They've never known anything else, and they've not really kind of stopped thought about, what am I doing? They're just kind of, this is how I've been raised, this is what I do, this is my job, this is my livelihood. And obviously we are seeing a change as well. Was that I can't remember the name of the company. I actually had a meeting with them a few years back, just kind of a little networking thing where they were going around helping farmers transition into stopping with animals and doing something else. And a lot of them were like oat farmers and
so good
other fruit and vegetable farmers, which obviously you're getting more for your money, because you're not feeding, like, let's say for instance a cattle that costs a lot to feed, and that's just one of them, let alone thousands. And then obviously what you're actually getting from them, even calorie wise, you're not getting a huge amount for what they're eating. Whereas, and obviously water and all that, whereas, something like oats, something like, your fruit and vegetables, there's a smaller amount of water for what you're actually farming and getting, and you're getting more calories out of it because it's not consuming and then wasting it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of farmers, they know that, really. It's just hard to, change their whole mindset, but it's not impossible. I know slaughterhouse workers who have gone vegan activists, and it just takes that one moment when you make that connection, isn't it? And everyone can become desensitized when they're doing stuff that they think that they need to be doing or that they should be doing, and it's always been done. And once your eyes are open to it, then there's no going back, really.
That's the thing. Like as you just said, there's so many people that you do see switch over, like slaughterhouse workers. At the moment,
Yeah.
I'm fully obsessed with somebody on Instagram that used to be a deer hunter, and
Wow.
and he is now the most extreme vegan activist I have.
Wow.
And
Oh, you'll have to send me his name.
Oh, yeah, I'll find him later. I can't remember what it's called right now, but
That is cool.
I'll send him over to you. And yeah, he just kind of goes in at exactly what he thought was right, and then obviously how he's changed, and obviously his mindset now, and how other people can change. It's beautiful. It's beautifully done.
Oh,
He still looks like some kind of redneck deer hunter looking guy as well.
I take it this is in America.
He hasn't changed the look at all, but
Okay.
he's this guy in like a very tight like vest,
Okay.
beard, tattoos, and
Right. I can imagine.
But I'm very, very obsessed watching his videos at the moment. But I think it is good to see that like even farmers are changing their opinions, especially when you're around as well.
Yeah.
So as well, like the two characters that obviously I'm guessing they were based on your own children.
Yes, loosely based on my kids. And obviously I wanted to bring in Pax. I wanted to have a female. Obviously I've got two girls, but I wanted to have a female superhero and for her to be the protagonist, because most superhero characters are male. So I was kind of like really going in for the whole inclusion and diversity thing here, because once again, girls don't tend to see the characters as female. So I wanted to show that is very much a possibility, and we do exist, us female superheroes. But also I think it will be able to be shown a little bit more when it's an animated series and you can actually get to know the characters and really get to know their personalities. I wanted Vivi, who is obviously our main star, I wanted her to be a little bit more quiet and more kind of introverted and pensive, and she's quite kind of clumsy, and I didn't want her to be this kind of like go-getter. That's Lily, her little sister, and she is the one who tears around and she's all over the place. And once again, a little bit more like my children, so they've been a great inspiration for me. And then Pax coming in as their like best buddy with his planet protecting powers, and he's going to be very vain and very cool and kind of keeps them in check, and just have like a really good vibe between the three of them. And I think that is really important to keep kids' interest. They need to know the characters and be able to like see themselves represented in them. And I want the children who are quieter to see that kind of as a superpower as well. Like, just because you're more introverted and quiet, that isn't a bad thing. You're very powerful with that. And I hope that's going to come across when we bring them to life.
I love that. And you've got some quite big endorsements as well, as I did see on your site. So Ivana Lynch and Patrick Baboumian as well, and Fiona Oakes and James Aspey. You've got some big people reading these.
Yeah, I know.
And like 1,000 pictures of kids reading the book.
Yeah, it's been amazing getting the support. And obviously Captain Paul Watson was our endorser for Sea Saviours, which was a massive deal for me. Like, I remember watching Whale Wars years ago on TV, and I'm so inspired by his work. And it's been really, really amazing to get the support. And Ivana Lynch has actually recorded Vivi's voice for us for our demo, and we've got her lined up to be her voiceover, which is just so exciting.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, she's got such a wonderful voice anyway, and we've got a few people lined up for Pax, so it's very exciting.
That's incredible. I love that.
Yeah.
I was about to say, this is kind of like, when it came to when I saw Patrick Baboumian endorser as well, but he's also got a comic.
Yeah.
Very much like the adult version of this.
Yes, the adult one, yeah. I remember when he said about it, I was like, oh, that's so cool. I was like, is it for kids? He was like, no.
Yeah, I actually I got to meet him a few months back now, and he's literally the friendliest guy.
He's the nicest guy, isn't he?
Yeah, like I assumed, like, because you see him and you're kind of like, he's gonna be like this tough guy. He is the biggest teddy bear I think I've ever met in my life.
Yeah, I think everyone who's met him has said that. I haven't met him in person. I've obviously only spoken to him via email, but he's always been so lovely, and everyone says he's just a big softie.
Yeah, he is. He was just the nicest, softest guy, and I went in there when I went to meet him, and I was like, he is definitely going to be like this very, macho, very muscular man, and especially with the German accent as well.
Yes,
it's going to be intimidating. And I went in there, and I was like, I've never felt so relaxed in front of a man.
Oh, where did you meet him?
Oh, that was a vegan camp out in Australia. Yeah, he was over there promoting his game, Uncaged.
Cool. Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
So yeah, he was just a beautiful, beautiful man to be around. Just very just presents himself in such a beautiful, soulful way.
Yeah, very genuine as well. It's very sad because we had Benjamin Zephaniah lined up to do our narrating.
Oh, that's really sad.
Yeah, we hadn't spoken to him yet. It was kind of just, I was like, I couldn't imagine anyone better. I love him and I love his voice and everything about him. But it's so tragic. It's really, really sad. But we've got other people in mind.
Oh, that's amazing. I did yesterday put up a story seeing if there's any questions for you or children. So I have at least two.
Okay.
Let me just find them.
Interesting.
Here we go.
Put me on the spot now.
Oh, don't worry, it's nothing too bad. The first one is, I'm a new mum.
Mm-hmm.
What's the best way to teach veganism to my child when they reach the age that they can take it in?
My books. No, I think it's really important when they're really diddy to obviously try and read books which are talking about this and not go down the traditional route of all the nursery rhymes, because they all normalize animal exploitation and we all just sing them without even thinking about them, and everything that is aimed at children just normalizes cruelty to animals, really. And I think finding other vegan mums, other vegan parents and vegan families where you can meet up and have vegan picnics together and, go out and do days at sanctuaries and things which, once again, just normalize that vegan lifestyle is really, really important. I think find your tribe as a new mum and, get to know other vegans so you don't feel isolated.
That actually leads into the second question.
There you go. We're interlinked.
Which was, I am a single parent with a vegan daughter. Where do I find other vegan mums or dads just to kind of hang out with? Yeah.
There are so many Facebook groups and kind of local support groups. If you just go on and say, look, I'm looking to meet other people in my area. I think get on the big ones like the Vegan Parents Worldwide and, all of those kind of big Facebook groups, and just put a post out and say where you are, and hopefully they'll be flooded with people in the local area. If not, start your own. So we got to a point, or go to some events. I went to just some local vegan, it was like a dinner kind of social one. And then there was a young mum about the same age with a kid the same age. So I just was like, right, that's it. We're now friends. And then from that, we made other vegan mum friends. And then we started our own Vegan Mama little group where we used to put on events midweek so mums could come along with their kids. And then we started doing events in Pizza Express, and we had 30 people turn up once. So I think, first of all, get online and see if there are any local ones. If not, make it happen.
I love that. I think that's important, finding community as well.
Definitely.
Just going onto Facebook and joining a group.
Yeah.
Sometimes it can feel very lonely.
It can.
Especially if you're new to it, and then you're surrounded with people that aren't vegan. It can be very overwhelming, and you could consider just going back to how you were, because obviously you have no support around you.
No, you definitely need your tribe. Definitely. It's really important as a parent, and especially if you're a mum and you're at home with your kids a lot, you need to find like-minded people to navigate through all of the difficulties we were talking about, school and different things that they're going to come up against. So yeah, that would be my advice.
Perfect. So I am going to wrap this up in a second. So I do have one last closing question for you.
Mm-hmm.
So you've had a rough day, it's been a long day, and you want something quick, simple, but yet healthy to eat. What are you making? It doesn't even have to be healthy. It just needs to be something as quick and simple. We've had an array of wild answers. So.
Oh, really? I think my answers changed a lot if you'd have asked me that a few months ago, I would have said like pesto pasta, something very boring and quick, and that would be what I would have gone to for the kids and for me. Now, I would probably say, because we're trying to obviously be a lot healthier, I would say I would do scrambled tofu with a grain, whichever, rice if you want to keep it easy, or like quinoa or buckwheat if you're trying to be healthier, and then chop in some onion, throw in some turmeric, some peas, a little bit of soy sauce, nooch, and garlic.
That sounds incredible.
Maybe tomatoes and carrot if I could be bothered, but just whatever I've got, really. Courgette in the fridge, chuck it in, mix it all up, and yeah, delicious, quick and easy.
Sounds incredible.
I could have just said hummus and pita bread, to be fair, but I'm trying to be healthy.
But so where can we find you? Where can we buy your books?
So I am Vivi the Supervegan on all of my social media channels, and it's the same as my website. It's just vivithesupervegan.co.uk. My books are available via my website, and we ship internationally. There's currently an offer still for Veganuary, so it's 25% off my books at the moment. But I'm on everything else, eBay and Etsy and Amazon, but directly through us is probably cheaper for everybody.
Perfect. And hopefully we'll see you quite soon on a television near you.
Yes, I'll keep everything updated on all of my Instagram and stuff. And hopefully it won't be too long now.
That's perfect. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me on. It's been great chatting.